Okay, so uh, I'm gonna lower order subdivision to low. Um, find any elements that missing subdivision. This way I can correct. I mean, this one is ridiculous, right? I mean, posing this with, for example, transpose master's rig would drastically slow down the process because it's trying to calculate all these vertices and where it should be, and it takes too long. So this is why you kind of have a lower subdivision, because if you transpose everything at high, uh, there's a very high chance that your mesh kind of naturally distorts in certain areas. I find anyway. Probably because my rigs are not that great. Um, okay, so with everything low, um, to, and any elements that you don't want to rig, you will have to hide them for now. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it, right? And the shell can go, say, wristbands, belt, pouches. Oop, this pouch, this one, the clip. Hmm. The shoes and some chocolate. Probably the cat as well. Yeah. This will be the easiest way to get the general gist of my poles, and then I can just move the other elements into place. So, transpose mesh. There is a rig option where you see. Show you quickly. That with the rig selected, it will generate a Z sphere, alright? And then you can move these accordingly, put them into place. As you can see, because of how these bones are connected, right? Uh, the mesh or the rig itself is very smart this way. So if you want to move this, right, it'll move the bottom part as well. Like if you just move, it kind of figures out the average of where everything is. So you can do some crazy stuff like do this, but I want to move this whole thing in a weird organic way. Right? Or you select the bone and then like stretches, pulls. That's its thing. For me, I'm going to do T-pose master. I guess organically. This does have a high chance of warping your mesh. Same with the sphere. If you don't do the rigging correctly, like some places will push and compress onto each other, and obviously that doesn't look great. But with this method, you can get your gizmo. Ooh, right, gizmo. and then use transpose master. For now, I am going to do it this way. Now, the pose I have in mind is from the late master Bruce Lee. Alright. So T-pose mesh makes it all into one tool. Move it all together. Right. And this just makes posing your character a little bit more consistent, right? Because if you move the body but don't have the head, you have to move the headband into position, adjust everything, and it kind of slowly, I find, doesn't sit right, and then you have to go back and edit a lot of what you've done. But with this way, it all moves together. Oh. And so you do the head, take off symmetry, right? Moves all together. So let's get this started. Now I do stress having a reference of your pose in front of you is very, very handy and highly recommended. Like a simple picture on your other screen, or using software like PureRef, like I showed earlier, will speed up the process. Fortunately, I don't have any right now because it's still in my reference folder was in my hard drive. I'm just gonna do it manually. It's not recommended, highly not recommended, but I will have to make do. Right? So, crucial elements of when posing your character. You want the center of gravity, the center weight of your model to align with the floor. This allows just for a more natural look to your model, because if you kind of don't have the center weight in consideration, your character just looks like it's floating in space and it's not grounded, and obviously that's not real because gravity exists. So I'm just gonna slowly twist and move my model, not too extreme, you know. You can soften the mask by clicking on your model and just slowly begin. Right. For this, perspective mode is very crucial. I find anyway, because it just allows you to know which areas has a more dynamic look and fluidity. Yeah. So the classic pose I'm gonna go for is Bruce Lee's. I think it's not Enter the Dragon. Fists of Fury, I think, something like that. It's basically the scene where he's using his nunchucks and he's swinging around like crazy, and his opponents are like in awe. And there's like final stunts where he finishes everything and he has his hand ready to pose and his nunchucks close to his body. Right? So that's what I want to try to emulate. And there's a lot of twists and turns in his position. So I want to try to emulate that as closely as I can. Right. Now, if your model breaks like this, don't worry. This is what it's there for. Now, obviously, with the rig, it will do it much more cleanly and smooth. I want to try it this way. Very tempted to do like a time lapse of this. I may do, may not, and just do a voiceover later on. Right. Because that way I can just focus on actually doing the pose, and I can tell you guys my thought process afterwards. But for now, just gonna ramble on as if I'm not doing that. So many twists, so many turns. It's such a dynamic pose. I think it's one of the most iconic poses Bruce Lee has in his or had in his arsenal. And it's a fun pose. It looks like a fun pose. Oh. Oh, this is not the angle. This is the angle. In here, rotate a little bit more. Right. Now your geometry is going to break because when you made it, actually I've seen some people pose first and just sculpted on top afterwards. I've tried that in the past. It does. It is a different method, I admit. Very effective method. But for me, I like to slowly, meticulously put things back into place. So that's his hand kinda in the right position. This is just Control Shift, click and drag. What parts I want to turn. Oh. Enter. Yes. Enter. Now you have to keep in mind where your transpose line is. Otherwise it will bend in weird areas. Or body. See, this is what I mean by weight, right? Bruce Lee is very low when he's done with this pose. So obviously the leg will come up, and that would compress Michelangelo's overall pose. This now there's obviously I keep on saying obviously, but there's different parts of the spine that bends, right? It's not just one giant stick. So you do have to keep in mind when posing your character that you haven't bent it in an area where it's not bendable. For example, this is one bone, and then this is another bone, right? So you'll bend it in the middle. Whereas I've seen some people bend it from here. And to do that, place this anchor, and then it bends, you know? And that's not where it bends. Like, this is masked, but basically the center where it's bending is here. And you don't want to do that. You want to roughly position the line to where that hip bone is. And then it kind of bends naturally. Obviously I have to bend this guy down. Now you have to adjust accordingly to your pose. And look at that, that's so broken, right? Not very good. Obviously this pose needs to bend. Rotate, move it down a little bit, and then adjust the ankle. There's a bend in the ankle. Right. Now, having that angle is a little bit better, or have it straight, pointing towards the enemy is okay. But in this case, I'm gonna do it this way. And slowly but surely, your pose should come together. Now I'm just eyeballing this from memory. Okay. So now he has a problem. The center line makes it so it looks like he's gonna fall back a little bit. Yeah? So how do you fix that? You create more bends. And this is kind of my preferred method to pose in characters. See, now, still having this issue. Now, what is it? What is it? This leg. It's his hip. That's what it is. It's the orientation of his hip, right? It has to be. There is elements to how a body kind of twists and turn. One side will be squashed and the other side will be stretched, or yeah, essentially stretched. That's kind of how the body naturally fixes itself or balances itself. Maybe it's his head. Now, I admit I'm not a master of anatomy. I do what I can. I think I do alright. There's this method as well. Head keeps on. So this is the silent point where oh, where I'm just trying to slowly get things into place. Oh, I think I see it. Now, from the front, it looks terrible. From the side, it's okay. I'm not really happy with that. Oh, was it because his knees were broken? Okay, so I could tweak this to the point where I would think, okay, it looks right. But I'm never gonna get 100% because I've got no references. And that would just be time wasted. Trying to do what your brain thinks is correct compared to what is actually correct. Right? For example, if someone asks you to draw an apple, right? You would say, yeah, an apple is easy. I see those every day. Or not. So you try to draw an apple, but then you forget the curvature is very different for every subspecies. You forget the color variation. You forget the size of it, right? In proportion. There's a lot of things that your brain kind of thinks it knows, but without actually seeing it firsthand, you'll never really get it right. So I'm gonna leave this here, and then press the magic button, T-pose. Voila, magic, right? And then unhide everything, and you're like, oh my god, I have to redo everything. Sadly, yes. But because we have everything in its own subtool, quite easy. Right? So this is where he really starts to come to life, because you're adding all his elements together, or when your character starts to come to life. Yeah. For example, like this twist here. I still have to retain his like backpack looking aesthetic. I can't forget that. Put things roughly into place. Yeah. And look at that. Just coming together bit by bit, right? His teeth can stay, that's fine. His hat, he's readjusting, right? So, here, And because you move the head together, you can even make it even more a silhouette. Like it here. Okay. Then we have his belt. It's going to be very tricky. Now let's move it here. Go to C placement. And I find the more pieces you have, the more freedom you have to make your character come to life even more. Now, don't go crazy. I mean, if a mesh requires 100 pieces, then it needs 100 pieces. But just don't make pieces just for the sake of pieces. The elements have to work with the design. Like, I could give it Michael wings, right? Oh, wings, giant rockets, whatever. It'll be cool, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't add to the design. It would just make it look very messy, in my opinion. Have to really stress that out. Okay, we've got the knee pads. Take off symmetry. Move these bit by bit. Position, just roughly for now, and then you can go back and correctly place all the elements. Right now I'm just quickly moving things. And now his silhouette kind of starting to come to life, right? Then we have these elbow pads. So obviously this is where symmetry really is broken. The dynamic pose that you give your characters really makes a difference to the final image. And then we got these elbow pads. Get a drink. Shouldn't really be drinking this much Monster energy drink, but it's tasty. Now, this arm, very complicated, because his elbow is down, but his hands are going up, right? So there's a natural curve, but because of this elbow pad and where it's placed, it breaks it up quite drastically. So I want to be quite careful, not make it stick out like a sore thumb. Okay. Hide that. Move on to the next piece. This is pouch number 4, which is his leg pouch. And I can just go there for now when I find the strap. This is his pouches for his belt. Ideally, I would have moved this together. With oh no, this is his backpack pouches. Well, just pouches in general. So this can go there. Mask this. Move these into place. Roughly for now. This one kind of an easy one because I just rotated his body and didn't really do anything drastic. It's a bit easier. Alright, that's roughly in place. Pouches can come back. These nunchuck holders, same deal. Rotate from the center and place on his belt. Now his nunchucks. I'll do that later. That's a tricky one. So this was this way. This goes there. This rotates into his leg. Not perfect for now, but it's in place. Yep. Unhide that. The clip. Okay, that's quite an easy mesh. Now, because of how the pose is, I can actually move this here. Because it doesn't really change the silhouette much. Right? I can really push it if I really wanted to. But now, it just stands out more as an object on its own. Right? So earlier I made it so where it was positioned, it creates silhouette. But now because I've changed the pose, it doesn't affect anything. So now I can put it in a place where it has more of an impact on its own. And that's the great thing about posing, right? Nothing's really you find new elements or new positions to place your elements, and it just brings the character to life even more. Obviously, all that like adjustment you did, like what I did with pinching the strap to make it thinner, I would have to adjust that, but it's not a big deal for me. But whereas if you had done all this high resolution, all this crazy detail work, and then like in the T pose, but then you came and decided, oh, I want to pose him or that my character now, you would do all this process, and then you would have to, like I said earlier, just move things into place, and you have a high chance of losing your detail, and that's no fun. so let's get the shoes. Into position. I can move this back even more. Okay, that's the spare strap. Okay, now, because I did a lot of work, gonna save. And work on these nunchucks. Okay. So there's a few elements that I will probably adjust. This knee pad, I want to probably change it a bit. His leg position, I mean. But let's work on the nunchucks. Click on symmetry. So, from my understanding, he held it like this. Oh, Bruce Lee held it like this, right? Close to his body. Now, this is going to be a very tricky print for the object itself, as there's a high chance that this object has a high tendency to break. Just because how it's intersecting with the mesh. But we'll get to that stage and deal with it accordingly. Move the chain. Now, I personally made the chain thicker. Just so it doesn't break. Hopefully it doesn't break. I will probably change it if needs to be, but for now we'll keep it this thickness. Okay, get rid of that. Now I do obviously want tension because it was quite a key aspect of how tight Bruce Lee was holding his nunchucks at the end, and it just shows a little more realism to the model. So his arm will go there, right? And for these two, oh, They will go side by side. Perfect 180. Move it there. This chain. Just this one will move, this one, this one. This one would move, right? Mask that off, it doesn't interfere. Move the gizmo to where you want the rotation. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do want a 90-degree angle. Right. Well, I didn't undo this. Alright, no biggie. Split that one, delete. Oh. Now I have a separate. As I did that, then I would rotate it this center. And I would do the same here. That's how I would probably do that. Now, right. Okay, let's see what I did. Put this all back. Put this back into place. Now, if I really wanted to, I could adjust these chains individually to make more of a tension, right? But because how small these are, it wouldn't matter, but it would make the model itself look much better. What's this break-in? Alright, let's just do polygroup. Auto polygroup. There you go. They're all individual. Not ideal. Okay, I can go back to this. Oh, anchor it correctly. Move here. This. As I suspected, should have moved it with the belt. Well, then no, actually, I can't already. Now this is where designing comes back in, right? Do I want to change dangling or do I want change resting? I can have actually the best of both worlds, right? I'll do this. Oh, not scale. Wait. No, because of how the objects are interacting with each other, there's going to be quite an adjustment to each individual ring. But that is just part of the process. But luckily, because they're all separate objects. Not that bad. I just gotta make sure and no other rings are getting selected at the same time. I think it's okay. And these little tweaks, these little I guess eye for detail is what makes a model really. You can see, hopefully, the effort it takes to create a character, especially the ones that you really enjoy doing. Right? There's some sketches, doodles, whatnot. They can be done at your own leisure. But for main projects, spending that extra time to do these monotonous tasks will make the model go a long way. And for some people, yeah, this can be very boring, but for me, quite therapeutic. This is the same task over and over again, but a little bit different at the same time. Now, because I adjusted that, adjust this, and I gotta adjust this, just until I am satisfied with the position. Now, doing all that, and then later finding out, I don't really like it there. Just gotta go through the process again, and it's all part of it. So those things are in place. There's something I still want to adjust. Right. But this needs to go in a bit more, I find. Right. I'll solve, make sure I get the right things. This. And then you press the magic button, high all, and then you have it. Your model is somewhat posed, and you're ready to go to the next step of refining the details, putting things back into place, and yeah, to the next step.